We have a second speaker. Adrian Charlie is a mother of 3 and a living donor to 1. She's from the Squamish Nation, and she's got a really interesting story to tell us. Please welcome Adrian.
Good morning, everybody. I would like to thank you all for coming for the last 2 days. Sorry, I get really emotional when I talk about my story. And like Mimi, in the Aboriginal community, I'm trying to break the barriers on organ donation. As she had said, a lot of First Nation people believe that your body needs to be whole when you move on to the other side. So for me, it was very difficult to become an organ donor. Skalautana Kwikwishaman Skohotmish E Stala Ochmeo. Adrian Charlie Queen Sna. My name is Adrian Charlie, and I was raised very traditional by my father, who was raised by his grandfather. And as I was growing up, my dad would sit with us and talk with us about our culture and our traditions and the way we should be. This is my father and my son. They both carry the name Sconchton. And Sconchton in the Squamish Nation is the first man. He is our first descendant. The totem pole that is standing erect in the Carson Graham Secondary School on the North Shore is representative of the story of the origin of our people. My father had told me these stories as I was growing up. And myself, I carry the name Skalautin, which is also in the story, which is the second man, and they are brothers. I share the name with my father's brother, and my son shares it with my father. And we will continue to carry these and share these stories. The story of Sconchton is 2 brothers lived in Gibson Landing, as you know as Gibson Landing. And the first man, Sconchton, was standing and every day would be in his longhouse. And in the longhouse, he could hear this pitter-patter on the roof. And every day it got louder and longer, and it was more becoming. And when he finally decided to see what was going on, it was his brother who was brought to life, Skalautin. And Skalautin came, and what he had was a mask that was given to the family. And our family continues to carry this mask in a cultural, traditional way. And within this, we are born rights to have this. And we follow 5 different ceremonies throughout our lives. We have our birthing ceremony, which you are born into to carry these traditions. Then we have our puberty, where we're moving in as we grow older, and then we have our names. And when our names are carried and our puberty rights are given, we are going through a ceremony to be taught how to be, how to live, how to act. And with this, my dad had told us all our lives that in order to be a part of this, we must follow what we have been taught. And that also means that our body must be whole. So he was raised by his grandfather, which you would see on the right-hand side. His name is Dominic Charlie. His traditional name is Sequalton. And the man to the left is Jericho Charlie, and his traditional name is Chenaltzit. Jericho Charlie had a longhouse 70 feet wide by 400 feet wide at Jericho Beach, what we know is Elwha. And I'm right from here, from Vancouver, so these traditions have been passed on. Jericho lived there all his life at Jericho Beach, and he was working with Jerry Cove and that is how Jericho Beach has come to be named, was through my great-great-grandfather and Jerry's Cove when they were booming the logs to clear Vancouver. I'm also from the Stalo Nation, and this is a picture of the mountain that you can see from the community where my mother is from. And we know her as Alchilwit and Llechach, and many of you may know her, may know this as Mount Chiam, and this mountain is located in Popcom and Rosedale. And with her, they were sisters, and they were changed into stone people. And behind them, you can see there's a shape of a dog. That dog actually belongs to Mount Baker, who was her husband. And Mount Baker's name was Kalshan. And long ago, we had Khals who had changed many of our people. And the reason that they were changed was there was controversy of the two sisters that were up there. And so now they are left as stone because they were not following their traditions. This is my mother and her grandfather. So as you see it, we have a continuation of how we were raised. My mother was raised by her grandparents, and she, for her, it was really hard to talk about her culture and her tradition. She just recently started to break free of that because she went to residential school. And for a long time, we weren't able to follow our culture and our tradition, so that's very hard. So there's the differences between my father, who was raised by his grandfather, who did not attend residential, his family did not, but my mother's family did, and it was a different time. And then, so we see within the differences of myself growing up being torn between being raised in a community where my father was very strict with our cultures. My mother, was quite lenient, and she pushed the education. She pushed myself to go to school and to play sports. And with that, my dad was also strict, and I was on a very strict diet when I was growing up. So I'm really, really quite healthy. I lived a natural diet. We didn't eat a whole lot of the rice, as Mimi said. And that was one thing that a lot of our communities also like to eat. But my dad knew that the sugars would not be good for us. And we lived a lot on wild salmon. We ate a lot of moose and deer and bear. And so I had a very, lean diet. Very rarely ate chicken, very rarely ate beef. So we'll move on into my story. And this is myself and my adopted daughter. I met her when she was 17 years old. She had a very terrible upbringing, which a lot of First Nations people do. She had no family. She was pushed from foster care to foster care. Her father died when she was 13. Her mother had been in a car accident when she was 2 years old and couldn't care for her. So she was moved along, and she's a very bright young girl. Her name is Elisa Derrick. She's Wet'suwet'en from Morristown, and she was living in Vancouver on her own at 17 and had a scholarship to play badminton at Langara College. And she was moving on into playing in the provincials. And I decided after, having my second child and becoming a single mother that I should go back to school. So I went back to school to be a librarian and was taking a few courses at Langara College where I met Elisa. And Every day there was a brand new building being built, and in the room there was a room, it was an Aboriginal room, and we would sit there and we thought we were the only ones that used the room because I think we were the only ones that knew it was there. So we would sit every day and I would go in and do my homework, I would go and study, and she would come in and she'd be talking about badminton. She was, always just excited about her badminton and all the courses that she was taking. And she would have her bad days, and me, myself, I love my family, I love my children. And I would talk about my son, I would talk about my daughter, who was only 1 year old at the time, and it was very tough. And one day she came in and she was just like, she was crying. She goes, I don't know how you do it. She goes, I'm having a really rough day. My bike got stolen. She goes, someone stole my wallet yesterday, and I don't have somebody to talk to. And she goes, I really wish I had a mother, and if I had a mother, I wish she was like you. It was then that I decided, I'm going to adopt this girl. So I adopted her, and at the age of 17, we had a small ceremony, a traditional ceremony where she became my daughter. And my family was very upset when I told them what we were going to be doing. And we had shared a lot of time together, and when I found out that she became ill, we found out after she went to nationals for badminton. She's ranked 13th in Canada, and BC Children's Hospital had phoned her when she returned. And when she returned, we were wondering why she was tired, why she was peckish. Like Mimi said, it was hard to walk up the stairs, anything that she was trying to do, but she continued to push herself. And they had let her know that her kidneys were functioning at 30%. So at this time, I decided, I'm going to give you my kidney. I have two. Why not share them? My best friend, and the biggest point of that was my best friend passed away the year before of kidney failure, waiting for a kidney. The hardest part of that is you see so many First Nations people. Here in BC alone, we have 19,000 people with various degrees of kidney disease. With the high amounts of that, the donor list is very small, and very few of them make it to receive a transplant. Once my family had met Elisa, we had a big dinner. My family, they weren't talking to me. They weren't accepting her, but it was tough. So I called a family dinner, and we went to Chilliwack, and we ate at a restaurant that we've ate at all our lives. We walked in, and they had the room set up for us, and I introduced Elisa to my family. And I told them her story. I told them about the goals that she had for playing badminton, for continuing to go to school, for somebody you would expect not to make it. Expect an Aboriginal child who has had such a rough life to persevere in her education. But my family, once they got to know her, they accepted the fact that we could definitely go through with this procedure. Despite my family saying no at first, I had still gone through the process of all the testing. I was at the hospital, St. Paul's Hospital, and I went through all the testing. Everything obviously had come through, and when I found out, she went home to Prince Rupert, and she had fallen ill in the hospital, and her kidney levels dropped to 8%. And we were luckily enough that there was a cancellation, And we got in a little bit early for the transplant, which happened on June 27th, 2011. So this year we celebrated our 5-year anniversary of organ donation. And we continue to work together as a family. And this is my daughter, my other daughter, Kaylana. And she continues to see the love that she has for her sister. And she works with, also donates her time with the Kidney Foundation. And she dances with the Kidney Kids and has got to know all the children that she sees that are ill. And when she can, she'll educate people and her friends on diet and on health. And we continue to just to follow our traditions, and for culturally being able to continue to change our people's minds on what it is to donate your organs, that you can live and be healthy and be vibrant. My family has now, they donate their time, and many of them have registered to be organ donors. And I see that change within my immediate family, and have been trying to push this in many of the within community engagements across BC. And recently, I had lost a cousin, and he was a registered donor, and he donated all his organs. And so that was probably a month ago. So he was able to share his organs, and seeing this, that there is that change, there is the acceptance, and people are willing to understand that this is something that we can get past. We have moved so far within our communities that we can do it. Thank you.